I personally would rather have coffee or brunch with someone than go. I don't drink. I find it unproductive.
What's she order?
There's a saying people always repeat, actions speak louder than words. And right now, that phrase is hitting Erika Kirk harder than ever. Brand new footage just popped up online, and people are stunned by what they're seeing. For years, Erika carefully built this polished public image around being a faith-focused, conservative woman who stayed far away from drinking, partying, and that whole nightlife scene. She made it sound like her lifestyle perfectly matched everything Charlie Kirk publicly stood for.
I have respect for the individuals that are in the pornography industry, and we live in a free country, so if you want to watch it, turn on your...
She talked about it on camera, doubled down during interviews, and fully leaned into that clean-cut identity for years. But now, everything is getting questioned after new clips surfaced showing Erika out in New York City, appearing visibly drunk while partying with friends. The vibe in the footage looks completely different from the image she spent so much time presenting online, and people across social media are calling out the contrast fast.
I have a sleepover for the rest of my life with my best friend. Like, there's just like this hype.
And this wasn't some grainy old clip hiding in the corner of the internet from years ago at some random event. The footage is clear, detailed, and spreading across social media at lightning speed. Everywhere people look, the conversation keeps getting louder, and the reactions are non-stop. A lot of viewers are now asking the same question over and over again. Did Charlie Kirk really know who Erika was before marrying her?
What alarms me about Erika isn't so much the fact that she lies, which we will prove to you over and over again, but it's also the fact that I don't know that she's aware that she's lying. It's almost as though she doesn't remember. Like the version that she's telling us today or yesterday was just recently downloaded into her mind, and she therefore thinks it's true, like a faulty memory or something. I'm saying that I'm not sure if she's fully aware that she's lying, because it's like some of the lies are so stupid. She's just sort of going.
People are seriously debating whether Charlie knew the full picture or if he was presented with a carefully crafted version of Erika that perfectly matched his personal values, political image, and public reputation. That question alone has split the internet into two major sides, and both camps are going hard defending their opinions. The first group believes Charlie may have been genuinely misled. Their argument is pretty simple. Before Erika entered his life, Charlie reportedly had very little dating experience and spent most of his younger years heavily focused on politics, speaking events, and building his public career.
For obsession, I'm still heavily obsessed with my husband. I always will be.
Supporters of this theory think that lack of relationship experience may have made it harder for him to spot when someone was presenting an idealized version of themselves instead of showing every side of who they really were. According to this side of the debate, Charlie was the perfect person to manipulate because he allegedly didn't have the relationship experience needed to recognize certain warning signs early on. They see him as someone who walked into the situation completely trusting, without the instincts that usually come from years of dating and personal experience. Online discussions around this theory have exploded, with people claiming he may have been far more vulnerable than the public realized. But the second camp sees the whole situation in a much darker way. They don't believe Charlie was caught off guard at all. Instead, they think he understood far more than people assumed and may have willingly played along in the beginning for the sake of image, politics, or public branding. Then, according to this theory, something changed behind the scenes. Supporters of this idea claim Charlie later started asking questions, pushing for more transparency, mentioning the Epstein files publicly, sending warning messages, and even appearing without his wedding ring. And that's when people believe the situation allegedly started unraveling fast. Both of these theories are spreading everywhere right now, and so far, neither side has been fully proven true. But what keeps pushing the conversation forward is the growing amount of footage and claims making people question whether Erika Kirk was really the person she publicly presented herself to be. A lot of viewers now believe she may have been carefully shaping a polished image long before Charlie Kirk was ever part of the story. What makes the newly surfaced footage so shocking is the timing behind it. During that same period, Erika was publicly describing her life in a completely different way. She said she wasn't into partying, claimed she rarely went out, and even suggested she mostly watched other people have social lives instead of taking part herself. That image became a huge part of how people viewed her online and in interviews. She presented herself as someone already deeply connected to conservative values, faith-based living, and a more reserved lifestyle that separated her from the nightlife crowd around her. But now the clips making rounds online seem to paint a very different picture, and that contrast is exactly why the internet cannot stop talking about it right now. The situation got even more intense once people realized the footage was originally posted by Erika's cousin, Nicole Rothstein. The same person Erika publicly referred to only as her roommate, while reportedly leaving out the fact that they were actually related. That detail alone has people online digging deeper and questioning why the family connection was downplayed in the first place. In the clips, Erika and Nicole are seen enjoying nightlife in New York City, going out to clubs, hanging around crowded social scenes, and appearing completely comfortable in environments Erika later claimed were never really part of her lifestyle. The contrast between the public image and the footage is exactly why this story exploded so fast across social media. One clip especially has people replaying it non-stop. Erika is seen inside their apartment casually showing off liquor bottles without any hesitation at all. Then comes the moment everyone keeps talking about. Erika appearing visibly intoxicated while laughing loudly and stumbling around the kitchen with friends. For critics online, that image clashes hard with the calm, faith-driven, sober, conservative persona she publicly promoted for years and that many believed represented her real day-to-day life. But the conversation didn't stop there. Another clip started circulating that pushed the controversy even further, showing Erika joking around near Catholic nuns inside a museum setting. To be fair, none of the footage by itself shows criminal behavior or anything illegal. A lot of people in their 20s living in big cities go out, party, drink, and have moments they probably wouldn't want resurfacing years later. The reason this became such a massive topic is because critics believe the footage appears very different from the public identity she later built online and in interviews. That part is important to understand. Most people are not attacking Erika simply for going out, having fun, or living a social life during her 20s. That's normal for a lot of young adults, especially in a big city environment. The real controversy, according to critics online, is the belief that the public image she later promoted allegedly did not fully match the lifestyle shown in the resurfaced footage. And people keep focusing on that contrast again and again. Critics online say the issue goes way beyond simply leaving parts of her past out of interviews or public conversations. They believe Erika actively promoted an image that presented her as someone who never drank, never partied, and always lived a strictly faith-based, conservative lifestyle. Now that these clips are circulating everywhere, people are questioning whether that public story fully matched reality, especially since the footage appears easy for anyone to see and compare for themselves. For many viewers, the bigger question is no longer about nightlife or liquor bottles at all. It's about trust and credibility. Some people are now asking, if someone allegedly misrepresented something this visible and well-documented, what else could have been exaggerated, hidden, or carefully repackaged for the public? That question is fueling non-stop debate across social media right now. At the same time, a lot of people agree on one thing. People absolutely can grow and change over time. Nobody expects a person in their 30s to be identical to who they were in their early 20s. Many viewers even say the backlash likely would have been much smaller if Erika had simply acknowledged her past openly by saying, "I used to party, I used to drink, and later my lifestyle and values changed." Most audiences respect honesty and personal growth, but critics argue that instead of openly addressing that chapter, she appeared to completely distance herself from it. And that decision is what has created so much suspicion online. And according to people following this story closely, things start getting even stranger once older clips are compared side by side. Viewers online began pointing to footage of Erika speaking with a former boyfriend, J.T. Massey, where she talks about slumber parties and sleepovers using very specific wording, emotional tones, and storytelling patterns. Then people compared those clips to the way Erika later described parts of her early relationship with Charlie, especially conversations about premarital sleepovers. And that's when social media really started buzzing. Critics claim the similarities between the two stories are hard to ignore. They say the phrasing sounds nearly identical, the emotional setup follows the same pattern, and even the way the stories are framed feels extremely similar. Almost like the same script was reused with different names attached to it. That comparison has sparked a huge wave of reactions online, with some people calling the repetition weird, and others describing it as way too polished to be accidental. To be fair, some people naturally tell stories in familiar ways, especially when talking about relationships or personal values. But critics argue the level of similarity here feels much more deliberate. They believe it gives the impression of someone carefully shaping emotional narratives to create a certain image or connection in different relationships. And once viewers started watching both clips back to back, many said the repeated structure and wording felt surprisingly calculated, which only pushed the controversy even further online. But according to some online commentators, even tiny details are now being picked apart in this story. One example people keep bringing up involves Erika Kirk's reported birthday. Her Wikipedia page lists her birth date as November 20th, while divorce documents connected to her mother, Lori, reportedly listed as November 22nd, creating a small 2-day discrepancy that has sparked a surprising amount of discussion online. On the surface, most people would probably see that as meaningless. A 2-day difference does not change who someone is or automatically prove anything important. But some internet researchers and commentators have still turned it into a major talking point, arguing that small inconsistencies like this can sometimes distract the public from larger issues being debated. A number of people discussing the situation online have connected this idea to broader conversations about media strategy, public narratives, and information overload. Their theory is that once tiny contradictions appear, audiences can become hyper-focused on arguing over small details instead of paying attention to bigger questions surrounding credibility, public image, or personal branding. Critics say that's exactly what may be happening now, with endless debates over dates, records, and paperwork flooding social media feeds while the larger controversy keeps evolving in the background. At this point, the birthday discrepancy itself remains unverified as anything significant. But it has definitely become another layer in a story that people online continue analyzing from every angle possible. The birthday debate, the resurfaced party footage, the questions about conflicting personal stories. Some online commentators believe all of these smaller controversies may be creating non-stop distraction and noise around the bigger conversation. Their argument is that once the internet locks onto dozens of tiny details at the same time, People end up spending hours debating side issues instead of focusing on the broader questions surrounding public image and credibility. Then there's another angle that gained attention after comments made publicly by Candace Owens. Candace argued that what stands out to her is not just whether Erika allegedly lied, but the way she speaks about certain topics. According to Candace, the delivery sometimes feels unusually polished and emotionally rehearsed, almost like repeating a carefully memorized version of events rather than casually describing real-life experiences. Those remarks immediately sparked even more debate online. Candace went further by suggesting the consistency of Erika's storytelling style appeared highly practiced, with similar emotional framing repeated across different situations and interviews. Some viewers interpreted that as evidence of someone carefully managing a public identity, while others strongly disagreed and called the claims exaggerated speculation. Either way, those comments added another intense layer to a controversy that people online are now revisiting with completely different eyes than before. Another moment people have started revisiting comes from an appearance Erika made on Charlie's Own show. During the segment, she was asked about her wedding date, and viewers noticed she appeared to completely blank on it. It wasn't just a quick pause or a small hesitation, trying to remember the exact day. The moment stood out because she seemed genuinely unsure while answering on camera, which immediately caught people's attention online. What made the clip spread even faster was that viewers also pointed out moments where she appeared uncertain about certain family dates connected to her children. Because weddings and birthdays are usually considered deeply personal milestones, many people watching found the reactions surprising, especially given how strongly Erika's public image centered around being a devoted wife and mother figure. At the time, most people brushed it off as an awkward television moment and turned it into jokes online. But now, with all the newer discussions and resurfaced footage circulating, critics are revisiting that clip with a much more serious tone. They're asking how someone who built such a major part of her public identity around family values could appear uncertain about dates many people consider unforgettable. Others, however, argue nervousness, stress, or being put on the spot on camera can easily cause memory slips, especially during live conversations. Some online commentators have taken these moments and built even bigger theories around them, arguing that Erika's public identity sometimes appears more carefully constructed than naturally lived. One area getting renewed attention is her history in the pageant world, especially because critics believe parts of the timeline she described publicly do not fully match records and older photos now being shared online. Erika has previously described her entry into pageants as something that happened almost by chance. According to her public story, she supposedly received a pamphlet in the mail, decided to give the Miss USA process a try, and entered the competition world without years of preparation or specialized training. The way she told it made the experience sound spontaneous and unexpected. But researchers and online critics point to records showing Erika reportedly participated in beauty pageants from 2005 through 2012, a stretch of about 7 consecutive years. They argue that amount of time in competitive pageantry involves far more than casual participation. According to people making this argument, pageants require contestants to learn how to perform under pressure, speak confidently, control emotional presentation, adapt to audiences, and project a polished image at all times. Supporters of this theory believe those skills can shape how someone presents themselves publicly long after the competitions are over. The debate intensified further after old photos resurfaced that allegedly show Erika competing in the Miss Colorado USA pageant in late 2009, years before she later described herself as a newcomer to that world. Critics online say those images directly challenge the timeline she publicly shared, while others argue there could simply be confusion over how she described her level of involvement at different stages of her pageant experience. Either way, the resurfaced photos have added another huge layer to an already non-stop internet controversy. That's the question critics online keep asking. If Erika really had years of pageant experience, why present the story as though she was suddenly discovering that world for the first time? Why downplay the amount of training, preparation, and competition already behind her? According to people pushing this theory, presenting herself as inexperienced may have helped create a more relatable and spontaneous image for audiences watching from the outside. Candace Owens has also publicly argued that Erika's mother, Lori, played a major role in shaping her pageant career from an early stage. And once internet researchers started digging into Lori's background, the conversation reportedly opened up an entirely different set of online theories and speculation. Critics began pointing to Lori's reported professional connections to defense contractors, including Raytheon, along with business records tied to multiple LLCs and different variations of her name appearing across documents. To be clear, having business entities or name variations is not unusual by itself and does not prove wrongdoing. But online commentators claim the repeated inconsistencies caught their attention because they believe similar questions have surfaced around different parts of Erika's public story as well. That overlap is what has fueled even more speculation across social media. Another major topic now being revisited is the single mother narrative connected to Erika's upbringing. Critics argue parts of that story may not have been examined closely enough when it was first shared publicly, and they believe newer discussions around timelines and family history are causing people to reanalyze old interviews and statements with much more scrutiny than before. Just days after Charlie's passing, the New York Times published a profile on Erika where she spoke about grief, motherhood, and raising children. In the interview, she reportedly suggested that raising her kids alone would be the least traumatic part of the experience because she herself had grown up with a single mother. That statement immediately became a major emotional point in the article and shaped how many readers viewed her story. But critics online quickly challenged that narrative after Candace Owens publicly discussed research into Erika's family background. According to Candace, Erika's father, Kent Fransby, was not absent from her upbringing at all. Instead, Candace claimed records and interviews suggested Kent was actively involved in Erika's early life and even served as a stay-at-home father during part of her childhood. The timeline people are now pointing to shows Erika's parents reportedly divorced in 1998, when Erika was already around 10 years old. Online commentators also claim that after the divorce, Kent allegedly remained involved throughout her teenage years, based on accounts from former classmates and people who knew the family. On top of that, critics have also highlighted the presence of Erika's stepfather, Larry Ginta, who reportedly became part of her life during her younger school years and remained a consistent figure afterward. Because of those details, many people online are now debating whether the single mother description fully reflected the reality of Erika's upbringing or simplified a much more complicated family situation. So when critics online look at the full picture, they point to several parental figures reportedly being present throughout different stages of Erika's life, including her biological father during childhood, continued involvement from him after the divorce, and a stepfather who allegedly became part of the family while she was still young. Because of that, many people now argue the phrase "raised by a single mother" may not fully capture the complexity of her upbringing. According to commentators pushing this theory, the reason that description matters is because it can create a powerful emotional connection with audiences. They argue that stories about overcoming difficult family circumstances often make public figures seem more relatable, resilient, and self-made. Critics believe that framing can soften public perception and make people more emotionally invested in the person telling the story. Supporters of this argument say this is part of a larger pattern they believe they've noticed across multiple controversies. From the resurfaced party footage, to questions about pageant timelines, to conflicting personal details and repeated storytelling styles. In their view, the common thread is not necessarily the individual incidents themselves, but the idea that certain parts of Erika's public image may have been carefully shaped over time to create a specific impression. Others, however, argue that family stories are often complicated, emotionally subjective, and not always easy to summarize perfectly in interviews or public appearances. Critics online argue that any single inconsistency by itself could probably be explained away pretty easily. People exaggerate stories, forget details, simplify complicated situations, or present more flattering versions of their past all the time. But according to researchers and commentators following this controversy closely, what keeps fueling suspicion is the number of disputed claims appearing across different parts of Erika's public story, especially when critics believe those details all seem to support a carefully polished public image. That has led some online personalities and internet researchers to ask much bigger questions about whether Erika's public identity was intentionally managed or strategically crafted over time. Some have even speculated about the idea of a scripted persona, arguing that certain stories, emotional beats, and public narratives appeared unusually rehearsed or consistently framed across interviews and appearances. To be clear, these claims remain speculative and have not been proven as fact, but they continue spreading rapidly online because of the growing attention surrounding the controversy. The discussion has also pulled Charlie Kirk into the center of countless theories circulating across social media. Commentators have pointed to his public comments about transparency, references involving the Epstein files, reports about warning texts, and even appearances without his wedding ring as moments that fueled more speculation about what may have been happening privately behind the scenes. Some believe Charlie may have been completely unaware of certain things until later in the relationship, while others argue he may have understood more than the public realized before eventually distancing himself from parts of the situation. At this point, the internet is flooded with competing theories, emotional reactions, and nonstop debate. Supporters of these claims insist the inconsistencies form a larger pattern they believe deserves scrutiny, while skeptics argue many of the conclusions being drawn rely heavily on speculation and assumptions rather than confirmed evidence. Either way, the controversy has clearly reached a level where people online are continuing to connect dots, revisit old interviews, and question narratives that previously went unchallenged. The conversation around this story keeps growing bigger every single day. More people are digging through old clips, comparing timelines, sharing theories, and debating what they believe really happened behind the scenes. Drop your thoughts in the comments because the internet is actively piecing this story together in real time. And the discussion is only getting more intense from here. The next episode dives even deeper into the claims, the contradictions, and the questions people still cannot stop asking.